they're in this 2024 system and the dating rules are this. So let's just teach integrity and character and integrity in the midst of what that says. Because one family is not going to be able to change the social structure of how dating looks right now. But we can certainly behave like Christ in the midst of that.
Welcome to the Faithful Fathering Podcast. My name is Rick Wertz, founder and president of Faithful Fathering, where we come beside the church to encourage and equip dads to raise a godly generation. Today, this podcast series is focusing on relationships, relationships ministry, healthy relationships. And in the studio with me, I have dear friends Brett and Kelly Hurst, the founders, co-founders of Home Encouragement. And I'd like to talk a little bit about dating. It seems that the old model of dating and what have you, we have two extremes. Dads won't let anybody date unless they're in a group, or the kids are just out there hooking up. Yeah. It seems that that's the pendulum swing the culture always does. Can you talk to that a little bit and help dads navigate through this time?
Yeah, I would just say you're right. The template has changed considerably. I mean, when we were both teenagers and maybe moving into young adults, we dated a lot, not because we were doing anything improper necessarily. It was just because we were doing the experimentation of learning the art of how to be in relationship with somebody else. And so that was just happened to be our circumstances. But you're right, there seems to be an aversion now for people to do some of the things that we did a couple of generations ago that were, they may not have necessarily been better, but there seemed to be more structure, and it encouraged some, lack of a better word, experimentation, of just learning how the art of interacting with the opposite sex, emotionally, in conversation, and learning how to respect one another.
I think when we were young too, and I apologize if I say that probably 10 times in this episode when we were young, but dating was a part of the social fabric. It wasn't something to be afraid of. It wasn't something everyone did it. You would single date, you'd double date, you'd triple date or group date. And it was never, or at least I don't remember it being a stigma or something that people were afraid to do. It was just as much a part of growing up as going to school was, Yeah,
and just to use one example, I mean, if I knew I had a date that I was fairly excited about, I might borrow my dad's car. I would spend 3 hours cleaning it, and I would wear my best clothes. And
you probably even back then combed your hair.
Comb my hair maybe with a hot comb, It was the 70s, yeah, but there were things that you kind of went out of your way to do because you knew you wanted to be extra considerate and respectful for within the structure of that dating model, if that makes sense. And that has just kind of gone away.
What pushed that? I mean, is it I'm thinking of pressure on social media, that if everything doesn't go right, you're going to get blasted on social media. Is there a fear that any kind of interaction one-on-one is going to be blown out of perspective? Or do you have any background or any understanding of why?
I think it's a perfect storm of two or three social things like that. I think, even when our daughter, who's going on 34, when she was in college, I remember it being an obvious thing that boys her age in college were afraid to ask girls out. They just didn't do it. And oftentimes, and we would kind of sit around and have conversations like, why are these boys so afraid to ask a girl out? And it's almost like they hadn't, and it feels like that was kind of the beginning of this generational thing that really shifted.
And that was about the time of the introduction of the smartphone.
That's true.
And I think smartphones drew all of us, not just kids, but adults as well, into this withdrawn, insular way of being, because everything's right here in front of you on your phone and so forth. And so I think unwittingly it created a fear and an aversion to stepping out and back in our day, calling somebody on the phone. Remember how much you would sweat before you would pick up the phone,
hoping Dad didn't answer the phone.
hoping and he always did, kind of thing. But
and just also just that was also the time when the delayed adolescence and am I saying that right? Delayed adulthood, or whatever they call
extended adolescence.
Yeah, sociological shift that happened where people just were sort of delaying thinking about getting married. So they were delaying thinking about dating, and I can't not mention, I think for a lot of young guys, I think online pornography was an issue too, that sort of, I don't know if it caused it or if it was just connected to it, but I think there were just a few things that were kind of a perfect storm that happened. But yeah, it definitely, I remember having the conversation at one point, dating is not what it was. The dating culture is not what it was.
And that, I think that always built character too, because when you got turned down on a date, that was always a body blow, and then as a guy, but then the girls started asking there for a while. They would ask the guys out for a date. I just thought it really got all discombobulated.
Yeah, I know, a little confusing.
And then how's the pendulum swing all the way to the hookup culture?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I think there's always this question of does the media and arts and entertainment reflect the world, or is it the other way around? But I think the media really, I mean, television shows and movies and everything would just show people, they meet the first time and they have a sexual relationship before they even know each other, and they skip all those steps that during the dating period are the natural, sequential way we build a relationship. We start out by getting to know someone, and then we build trust, because how can you trust someone if you don't know someone? And then once we can trust someone, we learn to rely on them. So that's just the natural sequence. And then we learn to have a commitment with that person. And then you move into your sexual relationship. That's really, I think, how God kind of designed it. But all of that upended, and people were moving to the very back of the line and having the sexual relationship before they knew the person, before they knew if they can trust the person, before they knew if they can rely on the person, or if the person is, wants even a commitment. Right.
And
so
we should say that those 5 points that you just laid out in that sequence were kind of coined by John Van Epp, who's written a series of books of how to avoid marrying a jerk and similar titles. But we very much think it's a logical model of approach.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing, it almost sounds like relationships gotten so hard we just skip that part and go to the sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we can't not mention how available sexual experiences have been made in the last 2 generations since the early 60s, when the pill came out, and then the sexual revolution, the late 60s and onward, it just, and then was reemphasized by culture. Was it culture picking up on what we were doing, or was culture driving it? It's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. We are where we are right now. Yeah. And because young men can have available sex, there's just no impetus for them to be in any kind of committed status, let alone doing some of the things I was talking about, borrowing your dad's car and cleaning the car and doing the hard work. There's just there's no reason to do anything hard. It's too easy, so so you're not developing those things that are marks of responsibility and character and maturity, in my opinion.
Right. Now, what encouragement? I know you guys had boundaries for your kids. We did too. I always think of the perfect picture of Dad cleaning his gun, and it was an act of intimidation, but out of legitimate concern. You're handing over your girl or your whatever.
Yeah.
So what are there any boundaries you guys have seen work over the years that would actually encourage return to this model? A little bit of how can dads and moms really encourage this whole dating model again and set appropriate boundaries?
Go ahead.
Well, I think just developing the art of conversation. It's kind of like the talk. We probably all have some version of whatever talk we had or
You
did.
mean the birds and the bees talk?
The birds and the bees talk, yeah. But we're of the opinion that the birds and the bees talk, it shouldn't be the talk. It should be a series of age appropriate.
Lots of conversations.
So I think the way out of this, if we're going to turn this around ever, is to just get back to ongoing age appropriate, age and stage conversations about not just sex, but just how to interact respectfully with people of your own sex and people of the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know back when we did we did a series of conferences called Let's Talk About Porn, and we always said the home had to be a safe place for these conversations, and that was back 2015, 2016, and it seems like now you can see defendyoungminds.org and CPYU, the Center for Parent and Youth Understanding, the sextalk.com. I mean, there's a lot of things that are saying. The trouble is the culture keeps pushing everything back. Like the average first age exposure to pornography now is like 9 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So parents can't start young enough, but so somewhere on that spectrum, they got to step in. Is there any kind of suggestion as a couple how you should maybe think through the time to kind of break that shell and say, we've got to talk about this stuff? Any thoughts there?
I think one thing that needs to be noted is we've seen how some attempts to corral this have not been successful. The I Kiss Dating Goodbye thing by Josh Harris, who now has deconstructed his faith and praying that will come full circle and he'll come back to the Lord. But and then also True Love Waits, which I think was a great campaign, but was subject to some limitations and so forth. It gives well-meaning Christian parents the temptation to not go there and not have these conversations. But it is so important to just talk about. I think it's more just about general interaction, and exposing your kids to as much guided interaction with other peers, both of the same and opposite sex. I don't know. What would you add to that?
I mean, it's one of those things that I agree with what Brett said. If you can have smaller, bite-sized, more conversations as your kids get older, I agree with you. The exposure to things that are unsavory for kids and online and addiction and all that kind of thing, it does start much younger. And so we assume that because children and young teens are more sophisticated and savvy, that they're smarter, but they're not. They're still children. And so we have to sort of recognize that we've got to have the age appropriate conversations. But one thing I feel like we did well with our kids, and I don't know how we stumbled into this, but we had conversations around what the next stage was going to look like.
That's right.
So when they were, 10, 11, 12 years old, we were talking about dating, and we were talking about how old we'll let you double date at this age. We'll let you go out with a group at this age and single date at this age.
We were always trying to think 3 to 5 years ahead.
Right.
And put that,
and have the conversation.
Put that in the
then,
conversation
right.
with the kids, even though they weren't even there yet. But we were saying, this is something that's going to be happening, instead of being averse to it.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of give them a beginning picture of what that might look like.
And the other thing we did was try to instill in our kids, learn how to be a great partner, that someone wants to date you or wants to marry you someday. Not just looking for the person that you think is wonderful or successful or cute or whatever it is, but let's work on ourselves to becoming people who are trustworthy, who are people of integrity, who, and I think that was a good thing that we kind of accidentally fell into a little bit too.
And I hope we modeled and even said what we say to couples all the time in our marriage work, which is the heart of healthy marriage is selflessness. Because marriage is this unique relationship that mirrors the heart of God, and the heart of God is selflessness, and which is contrary to the world. And so just again, calling that out, identifying that they're, something that's going to be different than the consumer approach to dating. We've got 1,800 different apps of how to hook up with each other, whether for a sexual relationship or just to connect with one another. There's nothing necessarily wrong with some of those things. But what you brought up, am I prepared to be somebody that's going to be worthy of a committed relationship? That's more important than if she's blonde, blue-eyed, or whatever the prototype is. I
remember when our son was in high school and he went on one of his early like homecoming dates. I think they went in a group, but they still had dates, within the group. And I remember sitting him down and saying, Caleb, you make sure that when this girl leaves tonight, because they weren't really boyfriend and girlfriend, they were just kind of going out on a homecoming day. I said, you make sure when she leaves, she thinks Caleb Hurst is the greatest date, ever, because you pulled out the chair for her. You made sure you paid her attention. You listened to what she was saying at the dinner and that sort of thing. And I'm proud of that. I feel like he did sort of do that. And so those are the kind of things too. And also to teach your kids to look for when they do meet someone that they want to date, to think about, to observe that person and how they treat their parents, how they treat their siblings, how they treat teachers and their friends. Do they talk about people behind their back?
Authority, the
there's
police.
So many things to just be able to observe about someone's character that I don't think we as parents have those conversations enough either necessarily.
That's well said. I love the point to think ahead 3 to 5 years, because most people are saying, don't grow up so fast. Stop. I don't want to recognize this now turning into a teenage years where, if you do look ahead, you have that opportunity to really prepare them. One other thing I know that you've talked about before, Brett, is dating. If someone wanted to date Sarah, they had to date you first. Did you do that with the guys?
I was supposed to, and I didn't follow through nearly as well as Brett did.
So what you're talking about was any guy that was interested in even a casual date with my daughter, I took them out for a hamburger.
Ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. And sat down with them. And, I had done youth work, so that was not a foreign experience for me, to sit down with a 12-year-old and get them talking and so forth. And I would spend most of the time talking about their interests and just who they are and what they loved about life as a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old or whatever. But ultimately, I would ask this question to the young man. I would say, now, do you understand why I'm doing this? And they would think, and then that light bulb would come on, ping, and they would say, oh, yes, sir, Mr. Hurst, I know exactly why you're doing this. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this with my own daughter, So it was uncanny how they would get that in an instant, And that was a privilege to be able to, because most of these guys did not turn into any relationships of substance, someone we never saw again, but.
And by the way, I'll say that our daughter at the time hated this idea. I mean, she complained, she begged, she threw fits, but it wasn't long until probably she was in college and she would tell us, okay, I'm kind of glad Dad did that. It really did make her feel very cherished.
The statement I remember hearing was that she said she realized how much you loved her.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and even for my 60th birthday, it made the list of 60 things that she loves about her dad. It still made the list all those years later. So,
well, wait till you turn 80.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll still be on there.
Well, any final encouragement as dads and moms leave this with the idea that they need to think ahead a few years, they need to look for that character, they need to exemplify that character as you guys have for your children. Any other final tips of encouragement for dads?
I think what I would say is to just not be fearful. God does not want us to be fearful about these, not just responsibilities, but opportunities. These are these are gifts to be able to have these privileges. I know we lamented one time when our son was in second or third grade and heard some variation of the F word. And, and then we were so despondent, like, oh, he's only in second grade. And well, we have to have a conversation about that. But, we learn quickly to adapt and say, rather than get all despondent about it, well, here's our opportunity. This is a tailor-made gift for us to have a conversation of substance with our second grade child. We wish it wasn't about this, but it is. So by God's grace and following his direction, we can do this because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me,
Sure.
Yeah, and the dating culture has shifted so much and become such a different system than it was that I hear a lot of parents say, lamenting, well, I wish it was the way it was when I was in high school and da-da-da-da. And I would say limit that comment to your kids, because your kids don't know any different system. They just know they're in this 2024 system and the dating rules are this. So let's just teach integrity and character and integrity in the midst of what that says. Because one family is not going to be able to change the social structure of how dating looks right now, but we can certainly behave like Christ in the midst of that.
Now, one last question. I know what we have not heard, what we know is a danger is passivity and disengagement. They're teenagers now. They just need to find do their. What's the tip to be intrusive to just the right degree and not be over intrusive, not to be over engaged, but to be engaged, be attuned to what the real situation is going on with the dating today. What any particular things we can do to keep our I always say mom has that radar and dad has a gut feel. Yeah. How do you work together to make sure that this is the right situation and when to say no?
Yeah. I think it's just overall consistency, and I think it's things that I know you and I both do as dads. When the kids were younger and I had a lot more capital with them, where I took them on their own trips. I took them to Florida or to Southern California or to minor league baseball trips or whatever, so that we had our things, and just you have all these earlier years, if you're not too late, to establish that kind of connection and kind of history that's just your thing with them. But even if that ship has sailed and you've missed that opportunity, there's still ways that you can prayerfully, God can show you and reveal what those connection points are. I think it's just about being consistent, connected, and I'll add this, not be in a panic about it. Yeah. Not bringing anxiety to the circumstances, no matter how bad they may be, because teenagers and
they already have anxiety. And they're already living there.
And particularly pre-adolescents and adolescents, they're not quite equipped. We get deceived into thinking they're adults when they're not adults yet. And they are not equipped to sort out all the nuances of that anxiety that we may be bringing to them. We don't need to be introducing additional anxiety to their situation. If we can be calm and consistent, we're going to provide an environment that's going to allow their maturity flourish much more abundantly, I think.
I agree.
Fantastic. Well, there you go, dads. We talked about intentionality. Now we have calm and consistent. That's your challenge. So
big talker here.
The key is to be engaged early and often, and to exemplify the kind of relationship you want your kids to have with their spouse somewhere down the road. So stay engaged, stay intentional. Stay attuned to what's going on in your child's life to bring a healthy dating relationship and that progresses as they progress and matures as they mature. But it has to start with a healthy relationship in the home and marriage and an intentional relationship, a lot of one-on-one time with each child as well. Thanks again to the experts here, Brett and Kelly. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and your insight. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rick. We enjoyed it.